Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your host.
Hello and welcome to the Do Good X podcast. I am Kimberly Danielle and I will be your host for this episode. I am a community builder, communication strategist, and a coach who comes from generations of faith-driven entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. If you have been joining us in our new season so far, thank you for continuing to listen and tune in. And if you're new, thank you. We appreciate you for checking us out, and we hope to continue to journey with you. Stephen, my co-host, you may see that he will not be here with me today and in additional episodes thereafter, but we look forward to him joining us again soon. In the meantime, I am excited about the conversations that I will have with guests like the one today. Today, we are happy to have Leah Hernandez join us. Leah is the founder and CEO of Muse Inc., an award-winning publishing company known for its commitment to promoting diverse voices in adult fiction and nonfiction. I had the privilege of meeting Leah about 5 years ago at a summer event that serves as a launch pad for venture builders of faith. And at the time, she was fresh out of college at Atlanta University and in the early stages of building her business. At that point, her efforts focused on young authors publishing, which now serves as the flagship imprint under the Muse brand. And since then, her business has grown significantly. In 2021, she was recognized and named one of Publisher Weekly's Star Watch nominees. And Muse Inc. has published over 40 books across all of its imprints, amplifying the voices of those in marginalized communities and expanding the literary landscape. Additionally, her business distributes works from 2 Black-owned publishers, Through Us Books and Pop Out Zine. As you can tell, she dedicates her time and energy to impacting the lives of others by providing a platform for storytelling, one that is inclusive and one that is empowering. And this is what we need. Thank you for joining me today, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a beautiful read of the bio. I'm like, is this new? Who is this girl? This sounds great. So thank you for that. In 5 years, seems like a world ago. And yeah, we have so much to catch up on.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the bio, how I speak about you, it is you. It is you. It is you. And I'm grateful for your work and for joining us today and dropping some gems on entrepreneurs that will be insightful for the journeys. So just starting out, I am always curious about people's why behind the launch of their business. And I know you started the vision of what is now Muse Inc. back when you were in college. So can you share with us what led you to pursue entrepreneurship? What led you to start a business, especially while you were in college?
Yeah. And I think the why has adjusted over the years. When I first started, and I'll take it all the way back to even before Young Authors Publishing, my sophomore year of undergrad studying at Atlanta University, I wrote and published my own book. And that really opened me up to the world of books. It was more of a call that I got, and something that really was a download and that I felt that was necessary at the time. And I had no idea that it would propel me into this career that I have now. It was just an assignment from God that I was like, okay, I'm going to write this book. It'll be one and done. And then it was like a world of possibilities were opened. And so I had the privilege to help other people, consult and write and publish their book. And then a mentor of mine told me about the Atlanta Housing Authority, and they had a grant program at the time. They were looking for new initiatives for young people. So I said, hey, well, I wrote a book. I'm a junior in college now. I don't know how to do anything else. So if I could provide anything of value, it would be to help kids write and publish a book. And so I did that. We did Roxy's Day in Vine City. And at that time, I was a lot of the work that I was doing at schools around financial literacy. So I was going to the west side of Atlanta, going to communities, going to events and teaching people, which is really ironic as a broke college student, but that was the internship that I had at the time, was teaching people how to manage their money and save their money. And I realized, well, a lot of people from our communities don't have access to capital. And so here was this new skill that I knew how to do, which was to write and publish a book that is now a product that these kids can sell and make money. So the why when I first started this company was really about financial freedom and giving access to capital through storytelling. And then the more I learned about this industry, the more years that I put in, then I noticed the link of the gap of diversity in literature, not just in children's literature, but across the entire industry. So the why went from financial access and stability and financial literacy to then, oh no, kids need more books that reflect their community and reflect their lives. And then I got even more into the industry, and then I was like, oh, well, this industry is not really diverse. I'm going to these conferences and these trade shows, and I'm, one of one, one of two, one of three on a good day. And it makes sense why we don't see diversity in the books we read, because we're not in these rooms. We're not working at these publishing companies. We don't own these publishing companies. And so I started to just kind of see more of the systemic hurdles that actualize to us not being in books and films and then access to capital. And I kind of see how they were all connected. And then here we are today.
Yes. That leads to the next question I want to explore with you, which, you talk about being one of one in these rooms that you're in with other people in the publishing industry and authors. And the data seems to show that there is a bit of a rise in BIPOC authors, particularly over the last couple of years, but the numbers are still very, very, very low in comparison to counterparts. In addition, there is a downward trend of readership. So can you put some numbers, if you can, on the current stats that reflect where Black and Brown authors currently stand? And how do you hope to move this needle in your work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the stats that you shared are very similar. The only things that I would highlight is specifically in children's books, less than 7% still currently, even though there's a rise in more Black authors, rise in more diverse books, we still only are seeing 7% of children's books are written by Black, Latinx, and Native authors combined. And so what that tells us is that a lot of these newer books that are coming out that feature diverse characters are being written by white people. And so not enough opportunities are still given to people of color to actually own our narratives and write our own stories. Second to that, less than 10%, I think 11%, of people of color actually work in traditional publishing. Again, that's combined. I think Latinx is about 6%. I think Black is 5%. And then Asian and Pacific Islanders, I think we're somewhere, whatever the remaining is. But that's a very, very low number. So again, we're not in the books because we're not in the industry. So I think having a better understanding of who's working in this spaces can kind of help provide some of the gaps that we're seeing today. And then the last thing that I'd actually like to challenge is that we're actually seeing an increase in readership, specifically with the Gen Z population. Portland State University, I sit on their board. They have a Masters of Publishing program, and they do phenomenal research every year on trends in the publishing industry. And they created a phenomenal research project on trends in readership, specifically across Gen Z populations. And what they're seeing is that Gen Z is actually reading more, and that they're actually engaging with our libraries more than ever, which I think is phenomenal. I think it's something that as a society and as a culture we kind of moved away from, but our libraries are such a great resource to us. And the more that we're able to actually get a library card and go often, the more money that they get. And so to answer the questions, there's gaps in each area, but I think the hope is that people are reading more. The pandemic did cause a lot more people to return to books. But I think how people are being marketed to about books and the type of books that we're publishing is going to determine if that readership stays at an all-time high or we continue to drop back down.
Well, thank you for that. Gen Z might change the game. And I love what you say about libraries because I go with my daughter to the library every 2 weeks and she's
Yeah.
on her journey to reading 1,000 books before kindergarten. And so it is a wealth of resources. And I am happy to see a rise of books focused and tailored to Black folks and brown folks and in the community, specifically to our stories. So yeah, that's definitely needed, and I hope that that continues to rise with the newer generations to kind of shift those numbers. In addition to how your work will impact the industry and help those numbers to shift. So I want to talk a little bit about where you started with Young Authors Publishing. And I know that that imprint started as a nonprofit when you started your business back fresh out of college. What were some of the opportunities and challenges in this business structure? And what
Yeah.
led you to pivot to a different business structure when you developed Muse Inc?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm laughing because it just seems like a whole nother world that I was living when we were a nonprofit. And I'm just so grateful for where we are now. The thing is when I started this, I was still in college and I had attended a fellowship. It was a predominantly white fellowship and a lot of entrepreneurs who were college students at the time and were starting businesses. And I remember going, and I remember one of the other people in the fellowship were like, yeah, we started this business, but we only got a small investment of $250,000. It's like, what are we supposed to do with that? And I'm like sitting there like with my $5,000 grant from Atlanta Housing Authority, like, I thought I did something, like, this is great. And I just remember being around people at that time who understood that I wanted to provide access to capital and give a platform for storytelling. And the advice that I was given during that time was, oh, foundations would jump at the opportunity to give you money for this. So many funders would love to just give you money to do this work. And so I was like, okay, well, that seems like the easy answer. We're going to go nonprofit because apparently there are funders and foundations and, all of these other institutions who give to nonprofits. And this seems like a very innovative thing that they would want to give to you. And then I got into it and I realized that a lot of these institutions and foundations give to the same nonprofits they give to often. And there's often a resistance to innovation. And people couldn't get behind the fact that this was a real product that deserved to be in the marketplace. And there were things that we needed to do in order for that to take place. They wanted us to focus more on the programming and going to the schools, which we were doing, but we also needed to go to trade shows. And I wanted to go to international shows so I can get our students' books translated in different languages. And it was just a really big disconnect. And then I sat back and I realized, well, I'm doing all this work and I would love to exit this company at some point, have a payout for myself, have a bigger payout for our authors so that way they can get more money. And the nonprofit structure it's not possible with that type of structure. And so it was a very difficult decision because I was afraid that our community wouldn't understand. I was afraid that people would think that my why was changing when in fact my exposure had just changed and my knowledge had changed. And I had found a better way to do this work outside of the structures of a nonprofit. And then my time and capacity, instead of applying for grants, I could just focus on selling more books and getting more authors and creating more innovative programs. And yeah, it was a difficult transition to make, but ultimately I think that it was the best one for the future of our company, our books, and our authors.
Yeah, I think that's very instructive because a lot of people don't know a lot of entrepreneurs don't know what they're signing up for when they go with the model of a nonprofit, which definitely works for some businesses, but it may not work best for others. And a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs of faith that I chat with, especially BIPOC folks who are driven by their faith, a lot of them are driven by their faith to do what they do, and they want to do good in the world for this reason. They automatically focus on a nonprofit model. What advice or tips would you give an entrepreneur who is considering if they should start a for-profit or nonprofit venture? What would be helpful for them when they're approaching that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I would say is have your exit in mind. What I mean by that is when you feel like you have done this work to the best of your ability, you've fulfilled your goals and everything that you want, do you want to exit? Do you want to get a return on the work that you've done, or do you want to pass it on to another nonprofit or completely stop it? The option to keep it going and to get paid for it and to have some type of return for either you, your shareholders, or your community and the people that you're serving can only happen in a for-profit. The second is the work that you're doing, is there a financial model that's sustainable? So do you have a product that can go to market that could sustain the company and without having to apply for grants? Because that was also a transition. I transitioned to for-profit and found myself still searching for grants. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I'll always have that in me. But I'm like, girl, you need to focus on sales. You're trying to get grants. Like we switched gears, Leah. We have switched gears. So that would be the second thing. If you have a product that can go to market and you believe is successful, you may want to explore what your for-profit models and options are. And the third thing I would say is, what is your mission and your why? And it's important for you to understand what that is so you could figure out the best model for that possible. Because the reality is that there is money out there for a nonprofit, and the work you are doing may be better for that. But you have to figure out what your why is, what you're trying to accomplish, how much it's going to take to accomplish that thing. And if those things are priorities for foundations and institutions. Publishing books sounded like a cute thing, but when we were really trying to talk about, completely transforming the publishing industry and bringing in people of color, foundations were like, okay, this is outside of just teaching reading to kids on the weekend. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. So those would be my three things. Figure out what your why is, figure out what your business model is. And if you go to for-profit, is that sustainable? Can you do that without relying on grants and funders? And then, I'll stop there because I can list a whole bunch, but I think that those are the most important.
That's helpful. That's good. That's good. And speaking of having a product to take to market, I know that Muse Inc. is launching Roots, a new personalized publishing platform that uses AI to help people create their own family legacy book, which I have a deep appreciation for because I'm into family legacy and coming from a very, very large family as well. What ignited this idea and for you to consider a technology platform in particular in this new season of your work?
Yeah, I think my daughter was a big part of that. Something about having a kid that just kind of, I know for me, really shifted my focus on wanting to know for myself who and where I come from on both sides of the family, really exploring my history and my lineage in a deep way, and I wanted to be able to provide that for my daughter. And so I was thinking about doing this just for my family. And I am currently this year. And I just wanted to be able to see pictures of great-great-grandparents and read about the life that they lived and then understand the context in which that time period was and what it was like for them to simply exist. And I wanted to pass that information on to my daughter and her kids and their kids, because I believe that specifically for Black and Brown folks, our history has been a very challenging thing to document. And a lot of that is oral history. Luckily I have elders who are in my family who I can get that information from. But I think at times we believe that we just have so much time to get it. And I just wanted to do it, one, for myself and my family, so that way we had it. But then I also noticed the link to Ancestry DNA and kind of the rise in people wanting to know more about their ancestral heritage. And I figured, well, this could be something that should be done pretty easily. Like the way that I go on Canva and make a flyer, I should be able to go and put all my information into a system and use technology to help me create this product that I know will have a lasting impression on not just me, but my entire family. And so it's something that's still in the early stages. Again, I'm doing this project for myself now so I can have a better understanding of how to build our framework and what to tell coders to include into our system. But it's something that I think would be really transformative for all communities and for all people to be able to give that gift to themselves and to their family.
That's great. is there a general launch date that you're looking to work toward for people such as myself who might be interested
Yeah, no,
looking at this?
I'm glad that you asked that. So I'm learning to slow down. And I think at first I got excited and I was like, we're going to do this now. Then I was like, you know what, Leah, you got to learn some more things first. So we're hoping to launch our MVP in 2025. And we're taking this year out to just really be intentional about what is needed and required to even create something of this magnitude, and making sure that we have the right inputs to make it easy for our users instead of just throwing something out there and then trying to fix it and learn it on the back end.
Okay, that's great. Well, I will definitely stay tuned. Move into another question, kind of circling back around to how we started and talking about when you were in college and really had this idea, did some work, and then started your business. What advice would you give to young students, especially students of color, who might be listening and have something nudging them and pulling them toward a business and toward entrepreneurship? What advice would you give to them?
To just do it. The best thing that I could have done in college was to start when I did. And I think the beautiful thing about I know for myself, being in college, especially during that time, because I didn't know anything, ignorance was bliss. And so I believed that I could do it all. And, fear and all that stuff didn't come later until I learned more about how difficult this stuff is. But the relentlessness and the willingness to just jump up and start something and grab it because you have the time, you have the space, and believe it or not, college students, you have the resources. And I'll pause on just do it to talk about the resources because I'm all about practicality. Being a college student is the best advantage I believe that you have as an entrepreneur, because one, you have your institution to help you and back you. There have been HBCU initiative, which is HBCU, I think FSI, and I may be misquoting them, but if you look up the HBCU initiative, they are a VC fund that specifically supports HBCU college students who want to start their own business. Black Girl Ventures is another. They have pitch competitions for students of color and college students who are starting their own businesses. So I think now more than ever, you have pitch competitions and grants and all of these resources available for college students. Use that and maximize on it. Your refund check, if you're doing it right, I hope that you're applying for scholarships and grants. I was so relentless with applying for scholarships, which helped me to then applying in grants in my business later. But I would get refund checks that were completely free, and I would use those refund checks to help with whatever cost I needed to help produce books and things like that. And then also you can use the advantage of being a student and asking questions for research purposes. Nobody loves to share knowledge and wisdom, more than they love sharing it with students and young people. And so I think that the ability to pick people's brain and ask them questions and lean on your faculty and lean on your professors is something that was also a huge advantage for me. So if you are a college student, you feel that nudge, you feel like you have the ability and the capacity to do something, start it now, because when you graduate when you graduate college, life is only going to life. And there are going to be so many other reasons that keep you from starting that thing. So the time is now. And then it'll also just give you more experience as you grow. I have 7 years of experience in publishing, and I'm not even 30 yet because I started young. So I think that that's the advantage too, is the opportunity to learn and grow. So I know that was a lot, but I really hope and pray that you take away the fact that you can do it. The time is now, and you have everything that you need to get started.
No better time than now, and all that you need is before you. I think you've mentioned some wonderful resources, which actually leads well into our next kind of segment, an area where we call it Resource Roundup. And this is where we explore various resources and practical tools, and you like practical things that people can do, Leah. And so this is great. This is where we offer that to equip and support entrepreneurs as you build your businesses. So listen in. If you're not already listening, which you should be, lean in a little bit closer, because Leah is going to provide you with some additional resources that you can explore. So first, starting out, Leah, what are 1 to 2 resources that an entrepreneur should explore if they are interested in launching a business related to the publishing industry. And especially for Black and Brown folks, you talked about earlier how you were one out of one in these rooms. What resources can you offer that will prepare people well for building a business in the publishing industry?
Phenomenal question. Thank you. The first I would say is to sign up for Publishers Weekly. They are the top trade magazine for all things publishing. That's where I learned a lot. Before I even met anyone who worked in publishing, for the first 2 years of my business, I would religiously read their articles every day in class at times, because that was the only way or opportunity I had to learn about the industry without being in it, because I recognize it's a very hard and difficult industry to get in if you don't know anybody. But Publishers Weekly is going to tell you who's publishing what. They're going to send you trends. They're going to introduce you to different publishing companies, and it's a great starting place. And it's free to sign up. They have subscription tiers, but it is free. The second I would say is an organization called PubWest. They're an association for small to mid-sized publishers. So in publishing, you have your big five, Penguin Random House, Simon Schuster, the list goes on. And then you have independent publishers like myself. Independent publishers make up a big part of publishing. I think a lot of times people only think about the big five of the world, but there are tons of small to mid-sized publishers that exist. And PubWest, as well as IBPA, are two associations that serve both of these publishers. I serve on the board for PubWest, and we created an internship program specifically for people of color. And so we give you access to a paid internship, which honey, I did not understand why publishing did not want to pay folks in this industry for internships. I was just like, people have to pay bills. People have things to do, and they can't go buy a sandwich with free money or free books. So I digress. They have an internship, as well as Legacy Unbound, which I'm really honored to be working with this year. It is founded by an incredible Black woman, and her team is amazing. And they also create paid internships for people of color who want to work in the industry. But the cool thing about Legacy Unbound is they pair you specifically with Black and Brown owned publishing companies, bookstores, or literary agencies. So you're working with people who look like you, which oftentimes isn't that accessible because it's not many of us. So I would encourage you to go to Legacy Unbound, PubWest, IBPA, as well as Publishers Weekly. That is a great starting point to just kind of have a better understanding of publishing, and a great way to get some internships and some fellowships as well.
Thank you. Incredible resources. The next area of resources I want to look at with you is, given your background in the development of Roots, which is your tech platform that you're working on and developing this year to launch next year. I know that you're not a tech, you don't have a technical background. How can a non-tech founder starting a tech-based business get their venture started? Like what resources might they be able to keep in mind as somebody with a non-tech background to develop a tech platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something I'm still learning too. So if y'all have resources out there, tell me, because I'm new in this game too. But first I would say is, I think all entrepreneurs need community. And I think that we start there. I think Do Good X is a phenomenal example of that, and a place to find like-minded people who are doing similar work and who have similar ethics and morals and beliefs as you as well. But there are so many others out there. And when I first had this idea, I went to those groups. I went to Goody Nation. I went to the Tory Burch Fellowship. I went to Black Ambition. All of these groups that I had been a part of for the past few years, I had built friendships and community and friendship. And I went to these same people who either had tech businesses or knew somebody in this space, and they gave me resources and connected me to coders and connected me to websites and platforms. So I don't have too many resources specifically on the tech side, but what I will say is if you're not in community of entrepreneurs and people who are building innovative things, apply to be a part of those communities. And there are so many out there. I just listed a few, but there are tons out there specifically for the state and city that you live in. So I would first say find your community, and then your community can then lead you to those resources. And then the last thing I'll say is I had a meeting with the coder, and someone had told me, I think it's called like white space or something, where you can like build out your website flow if you're building a tech platform. And it was all of these very confusing things. And the best piece of advice that I got from a coder was to not overcomplicate it. And he was like, Leah, go out and go get a notebook, a white notebook, no lines, and just draw out what you want it to look. Draw out your web flow and then send that to a coder. Because a lot of times we try to use these platforms and we try to be tech when we're really not that tech yet. And it confuses what it is that you want to do. So if you do want to build something in tech, start simple, jot it down on a piece of paper so that way you have a clear understanding of what it is that you want to build. Because if you don't know it, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to try to explain that and articulate it to a coder.
Yes, work smarter and not harder.
1,000%.
Yes, I love the way that they simplified it for you. Last question around resources. What are 2 to 3 entrepreneurial resources that helped lead you to your growth and success that you think can provide value to others?
It's like in terms of books or just anything.
I'm leaving it open for you to choose whatever speaks or has spoken to you.
Yeah, that's a great thing. It may not be a resource. It's a practice that I started that has really helped me a ton. I read Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. And in his book, he talked about just doing 3 things a day. Instead of trying to do the full laundry list of things, pick 3 things. And I have it in my notes. I do it faithfully every day, even if it's not work related. But I think for high achievers, at times we want to do everything under the sun. And then when we don't do everything under the sun, because it's impossible to do, we feel defeated. We felt like we didn't do enough. And I think that leads to overworking and having burnout. And so 3 things, it sounds so simple, but if you're an overachiever, especially if you're building something, I think that having some type of wellness practice is important. And I think giving yourself 3 things to do a day would really help. More practically on the entrepreneurship side of things, having a banker and a relationship with your banker is really important that I think a lot of people don't talk about. I recently have established a better relationship with my bank in the past 2 years, and it's helped a ton with cash flow and getting lines of credit and things like that. And so I would encourage you all, if you have a business account with the bank, go to that branch, build a relationship with whoever their business manager is. All the banks have them, and some banks even have programs to help founders. I personally bank with Chase, and they have a phenomenal program that I was able to go through that kind of helped us with the basics of our finances and helped with cash flow and things like that. The money is important, and the sooner that you can master it, the better. I wasted a lot of years just not knowing things. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so the more that you can get a hold of your finances, I think that would just be really, really helpful for you moving forward. And then the last resource that I am really loving right now are podcasts. So I'll just name a few of the business podcasts that I love. This is one of them. So I'm glad that you guys are already listening to this one. But Morgan DeBon has a great podcast called The Journey, and she talks about all aspects of entrepreneurship that I believe is really helpful and is speaking to me a lot right now. So I know that was long-winded, but I hope that answered your question.
Hey, thank you so much for the various resources that you have provided, both talking about community, books, websites. I hope you all check them out. And if you are enjoying this conversation with Leah Hernandez and find value in the resources and insights that she is sharing, go to dogoodx.org. Here you can subscribe to our email, keep posted on our resources, and join our Do Good X LinkedIn community, where we will share tools and tips like what Leah is sharing today and provide entrepreneurs and change makers with a community of support. So we hope to see you there. Now we are going to shift to our last segment with Leah, and this is what we call off the cuff. So we have a series of questions that have not been shared with Leah, and we're just going to kind of throw them out. And Leah just wants you to share what comes off top of mind, uncensored, unfiltered, and we will see what you say.
So I'm so excited for this.
All right. So starting out, what is one of your superpowers, a gift you bring to the world?
Organization. I am an organizer through and through. I will pull a spreadsheet together. I will get my family organized. It's my favorite pastime is just to organize things.
What is the best piece of advice that you have received on your entrepreneurial journey?
The only way to see it is to not quit. You don't get to see whatever it is that you're trying to build if you stop.
How much of your success do you attribute to your faith versus your own grit, will, and hustle?
Faith without works is dead. So to me, it is half and half. 100%, 100%. I would say you need 100% faith, as small as a mustard seed. And that small little mustard seed will take you a long way, but you have to put in the work. It is a non-negotiation. I believe that our God and our Creator honors, us to be great in what we do and to do our work well. So I think that you need both, and I don't think that you can have one without the other. I think you can work yourself to the grave, but you are not going to see the success you want if you don't have faith behind it.
If I were to ask a family member or a friend or someone close to you, one word or phrase that captures you in your essence, your being, what would that be?
Family and friends. So they know the real me. So that's kind of, I don't know, you ask a family member, they may say I'm the blonde of the family. You ask another family member, you may get bubbly and funny and goofy and silly. But I think caring is what they will all say. I care very deeply about my village. I would not be here without them. And so I go hard for the ones I love. So I think I would hope that they would all know that I care deeply about them.
Complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities will be or are more able to blank.
Thrive.
That's it. Thank you so much, Leah, for joining me in this conversation today. There are a lot of gems that you offered, and I hope you all have enjoyed hearing her, hearing someone's perspective coming from the publishing industry who has a thriving business, who is also exploring a tech platform as a non-technical founder of that platform. And just continue to tune in. We want to journey with you. We want to hear from you, and we hope to connect with you. Until then, be good and do well. Thank you so much, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. It's an honor to be here with you.
All right. So, Leah, one of the things that Stephen and I talk about a lot is the value of slowing down to really center ourselves, reconnect with ourselves, and dare I say, it really helps us to move forward faster and more mindfully and intentionally. So I want to hear from you, like what helps you and other entrepreneurs in your community to move through the entrepreneurial journey clear-headed and maybe even at a faster pace towards success than others?
Yeah, it's changed for me over the years. When I first started, honoring the Sabbath was huge for me. 'Cause when I started, I was running my business and still in school. So I was working and doing all the things 7 days a week. And so having one day a week where I just rested was a great foundation for me to start. Now that I'm a mom, things have really changed. My relationship to work is just different. Like you don't need to do all of that. Like and I wish I could put it a better way, a more eloquent way, but it just really comes down to the fact that I don't need to do it all. And I have found myself working less hours, saying no to more, and having better returns. And I think for me personally, I think that's just God showing me that less is more and that he has already provided everything that I need to accomplish the life that I want to live. But it doesn't require me throwing my body at my work the way that I need to, because I have a different level of responsibility now, and I can't afford to be burnt out. I can't afford to not show up at home the way that I need to. Like I can no longer could continue to sacrifice certain parts of my life that I had been for a number of years. So I don't know. You asked me about wellness and I went on a whole other thing. So I don't even know if I'm answering your question, but yeah, my relationship with wellness is definitely a priority. Like even before this call, I dropped my daughter off at school. I had like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I was like, I can knock out work. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to read. I have not been reading. And that's something that I feel like will nourish me and fill me. And I'm just making those things more of a priority now.
Yeah, motherhood, parenthood just changes things.
It
I can
does.
definitely relate because after I had my daughter, I had the same shift in the mindset. Like I don't need to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And where is my priorities? Where are my priorities and how are those priorities listed? And so I also stopped doing a lot of stuff. The other interesting thing too that I found that I've shared with some parents, not just mothers, but fathers too, is that after I had my daughter, I chose to work less, or I had to navigate because she's a pandemic baby. I also had to navigate raising an infant during that time working from home. And so I had windows of time that I had to work in, and I had to be super focused when she was taking a nap, super focused to get things done. So I found that I actually do more with less time now.
Yes. Oh my God. I used to have a professor that would always tell our class, and we were all like 18, 19, 20, 21 with no kids. He would say, my best students are always moms, particularly he would say single moms, but any mom. And I think this is the same for fathers too, but I think it's to that point you realize you don't have all the time. So if listen, when that nap starts, it is like an unknown time clock and I have no clue when it's going to go off. So if I have one thing that I need to do, I'm going to focus and do that one thing and it's going to be done well in that short amount of time. So no, I completely agree with that.
Yes. So I encourage you all who are tuning in to really think about how you're setting yourself up well. You're thinking about your well-being and you're really reflecting on what are the things you need to do or places you need to be present in that actually bring you life? And how much of yourself do you need to give to these different areas? What boundaries do you need to have? When do you stop one thing and you start another? Just so that you're present in the ways that you want to be for yourself, for your family, for your business, and all of that is managed well. So thank you, Leah, for sharing a bit of your own journey and your story and what you do to really help lead to your growth and success as an entrepreneur and as a mom.
Yeah, of course. And I'm curious. I'd love to just hear from you. Like, what does that look like? What does your wellness routine and practice look like now in this stage of life and motherhood and parenthood?
So the mornings for me are my magic moments. I'm an early bird. So sometimes I get up between 4:30 and 5, or usually I get up between 4:30 and 5. And that's my time to really center, to meditate, to pray, to journal, to read and exercise if I want to during that specific time to really start myself up well and set myself up well for the day. And I try to make it a practice to do those things before I even touch my phone, because I know that that can disrupt the flow of the day and bring me down a rabbit hole. I have 8 siblings who are still living, and you can imagine how many text messages I can wake up to. Like, yeah, sometimes it's over 100. And so for me, it's the practice of really maximizing that morning time to take care of myself before I get up and start the day and be with my daughter or be with other people or give to business. And for me, that fills my cup up so that I can give to others. Though I did see this video one time that a colleague shared with me, and it was this Black woman who was saying that we should not be giving from our cup. We should be giving from the saucer. So when we overflow, we give what is on the saucer and not from our cup. So that is a different way of looking at it.
Yes, because the cup is only the sauce. small. So it's wet. Yeah,
Right,
I like that.
right. So you're going to get from the saucer, and I'm going to
keep my cup. Yeah. What's in my cup is mine.
Right.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's helpful to hear, and it's something that that I'm leaning more into. I didn't have a pandemic baby, but she was home with us for the first year of her life, and so that work from home thing is a real thing. So I'm now getting back into figuring out what that routine looks like for me.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Leah, for joining me. And I want to chat with you offline to hear more and to track along with what you're up to and see the ways that I can support it. But thank you again for joining me on the podcast. We appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was truly an honor.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.